What's up? Welcome into the LFC Transfer Room. My name's Jack. Today's an opposition preview ahead of today's match against Newcastle. Joining us is Kris of The Athletic, who's going to give us all the expert insight you need ahead of today's contest. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Let's get into things. Well, with 4 matches gone in the Premier League season, Newcastle are still unbeaten with a record of 1-3-0. They have drawn their 3 matches against Brighton, Manchester City, and Wolves. There was a wide disparity in performances. Kris breaks down the levels of play they've had in between those draws.
I think there's a couple of things. First of all, Newcastle at home, I think, are a different proposition to which they are away. I think they're still working on how they can extract the same energy as they do from the St James's Park crowd. The war flags, who are the when you see the displays from St James's Park around the world, they're the fan group who really instill a lot into that. And the atmosphere at St James's has just been electric for so long, and it's almost like the players feed off the crowd, and then vice versa, and it's this like symbiotic relationship which works really well. So that suited them against Man City. It was a game where everyone was really up for it. I think also at Brighton, that just maybe didn't quite have the inspiration from SAINT-MAXIMIN, which they did in the home fixture. They were a little bit more disjointed, whereas SAINT-MAXIMIN, who is frustratingly inconsistent as flair players can be, but when he is on it, is almost unplayable, as he was, I think, against Manchester City. Alan Shearer commented on it, Micah Richards, live on Sky Sports, and he was just wonderful, and he really dragged Newcastle forward and frightened Man City. I think also the fact that Man City were basically they play where it's almost like man to man in many ways in terms of the way they defend, and Kyle Walker had one of his most difficult afternoons he's probably ever had in football, because SAINT-MAXIMIN took him on early, realised he probably could do him for pace and for skill, and then that pushed him forward. So if Alan SAINT-MAXIMIN performs well, Newcastle are a very frightening prospect in attack, but take him out and Newcastle lack a little bit of inspiration, really, certainly in the final third. Sometimes as well, SAINT-MAXIMIN himself can be guilty of overplaying, or if it just isn't quite working for him, if he isn't quite on it that day, then they do lack a little something in attack. So I think they were the two main things: the fact they were back at St James's, and the fact that Alan SAINT-MAXIMIN had probably his best day in a Newcastle shirt.
And while injuries are a huge talking point for Liverpool, with the injuries to Thiago Alcantara, Diogo Jota, Ibrahima Konate, Naby Keita, just to name a few, there are also many injury issues for Newcastle that could impact the way they play in this match.
If he is out, then suddenly Newcastle's resources are looking a bit depleted. They're already without John Joe Shelvey for 3 months. Bruno Guimaraes, who has been playing excellently at the base of midfield, he missed the Wolves game and is due to miss the Liverpool match as well. Also, Callum Wilson is out injured at the moment, and he's Newcastle's main source of goals. So if SAINT-MAXIMIN isn't fit, Alexander Isak should come in to make his debut in some capacity. I think ideally Howe would probably like him on the bench and then to bring him in. He couldn't feature at Wolves because his work permit wasn't sorted in time, but Newcastle hopefully will be for Liverpool. If there's no SAINT-MAXIMIN, I think there's a better chance of Isak starting. But if SAINT-MAXIMIN is available, then I think we're likely to see a similar side to at Wolves, although Howe may need to change a little bit, because even he admitted that over the course of the last week, Newcastle played Man City, Tranmere, and then Wolves in the space of 8 days, and the physical output of his side was huge, and Newcastle have taken a few knocks here and there. Trippier also had a knock. There's a few other players who they'll have to assess physically, so it may be a case of who is actually fit enough to start at Liverpool. It's not opportune timing for Newcastle to face Liverpool in that sense, but I do suspect Alan SAINT-MAXIMIN should be involved.
All right, now let's assess how these two teams will line up this evening and kind of how they might knock off against one another. Kris breaks down the threats that Newcastle potentially could pose against Liverpool.
Well, under Eddie Howe, and it's almost sort of counterintuitive to what we expected when he first came in as Newcastle head coach, given all of what he'd done at Bournemouth, when his Bournemouth team every year they'd been in the Premier League conceded 60 plus goals. Newcastle's strength has been defensively, and they are a very hard unit to break down. Even this season, although they conceded 3 against Manchester City, take that game out of the equation, they've only conceded once in the league. They don't cede that many clear-cut chances to the opposition, and so They will try and frustrate Liverpool. They try to suffocate teams off the ball. They're pressing a lot higher now than they even were last season. So the front three will try and press high, and the midfield will join and block them. So Newcastle are a resilient side, a difficult team to break down. And so that's what I think Liverpool will see. But also on the counter-attack, as I suspect a lot of Newcastle's attacks will have to be at Anfield, Alan Saint-Maximin, if he's fit, is the key. The pace, trickery he's got. I mean, at Anfield last season, he could and should have scored a couple of goals. He was clean through one-on-one, if I remember correctly, with Alisson, and Alisson made a very, very good save from him. And there was a few times Newcastle played him as a false nine. There was a few times where he really did disrupt Liverpool's defence. And so I think that he is the key for Newcastle in defence. They will be in attack, they will be defensively solid, but it's then trying to get the likes of Alan Saint-Maximin into the positions where he can actually affect the Liverpool side, and not just from deep, but he actually in a decent position to really actually take on someone like Alexander-Arnold one-on-one.
And now, conversely, on the other side of things, what issues do Liverpool potentially look at exposing in this match against Newcastle?
I'd say a key one because of injuries is midfield. Sean Longstaff's playing the base of the midfield at the moment, and he did reasonably well at Wolves, but he's not John Joe Shelby or Bruno Guimaraes, particularly not at being able to recycle the ball and get Newcastle forward with clever passing. He doesn't quite have the speed of thought on the ball to do that. So that is a bit of a concern. Joe Linton will cover a lot of ground in there. So defensively, it's not so much of a concern. It's just when Newcastle have the ball, they will have to use it wisely because they're not going to get too much of it at Anfield. I think that's a concern. I think the other one is goal scoring. Without Callum Wilson, Newcastle do look light up front. Isak obviously will come into the equation, but he's untested yet in the Premier League. Chris Wood started at Wolves and only had 3 touches in the opposition box. He hasn't since he's come to Newcastle. He's been an important player, but not in terms of goal scoring. He's only scored twice, only once in open play in the league, and so I think that is a concern for if Newcastle aren't going to get a hatful of chances, as you would suspect they're probably unlikely to, other than Alan Saint-Maximin, who is going to score goals for them. That is a bit of a concern. So I think the injuries have affected them greatly in that sense, being without Wilson and Bruno Guimaraes in particular.
Some great insight all throughout from Kris. Really appreciate the time he took to talk to me, and really excited to see how this match plays out this evening. Make sure you check out Kris's work at The Athletic in the description down below. Well, that does it for today's opposition preview video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for all the content that you need in the build-up to today's match. For the LFC Transfer Room, I've been Jack. See you next time.